영어로 듣는 어니스트 헤밍웨이의 노인과 바다, Summary.
Hello everyone. Today, we will delve into one of the 20th century's most iconic and deeply symbolic works, Ernest Hemingway's 1952 novella, The Old Man and the Sea. This powerful story not only earned Hemingway the Pulitzer Prize in 1953 but also contributed significantly to his Nobel Prize in Literature in 1954. Today's topic will be divided into two main parts. First, a detailed summary and analysis of the novella, focusing on its themes and structure. And second, an exploration of the fascinating and often turbulent life of the author, Ernest Hemingway, and how his experiences directly affected this masterpiece. Part 1. Summary and Analysis of The Old Man and the Sea. The Old Man and the Sea is the deceptively simple story of Santiago, an aging, Cuban fisherman, who battles a giant marlin far out in the Gulf Stream. The plot: an epic struggle. The drought. The story begins with Santiago having gone 84 days without catching a single fish. He is considered Salau, the worst form of unlucky. Only the young boy Manolin remains loyal to him, though Manolin is forced by his parents to fish in a luckier boat. The 85th day, Santiago sets out alone, determined to break his streak. He rows far out into the deep waters of the Gulf Stream, where he hooks an enormous marlin far larger than any fish he has ever seen. The battle. What follows is an epic, 2-day, 2-night struggle. The marlin is so strong that it drags the skiff across the ocean. Santiago endures incredible physical suffering, with his hands cut and cramping, and his back aching. He develops a deep, spiritual bond with his adversary, viewing the marlin with profound respect and love, even as he vows to kill it. He repeatedly uses the Spanish phrase, "A man can be destroyed but not defeated." The return. Santiago finally harpoons the marlin. It is a majestic, 18-foot fish. Unable to hoist it, he lashes the carcass to the side of his skiff and begins the long journey back. However, the marlin's blood leaves a trail, attracting sharks. The final defeat. Over the return voyage, Santiago fights the sharks fiercely with his harpoon, a knife tied to an oar, and clubs. He kills many, but he cannot defeat the entire pack. By the time he reaches the harbor, all that remains of his magnificent catch is the massive, skeletal backbone and tail. The conclusion. Exhausted, Santiago collapses in his shack. The villagers, though initially judgmental, are stunned by the size of the skeleton. Manolin returns to Santiago, affirming their bond and promising to fish with him again, regardless of his parents' wishes. The old man is destroyed physically, losing the fish. But he is not defeated. He retains his spirit, dignity, and the love of the boy. Key thematic elements. Code of honor and dignity. Santiago embodies Hemingway's famous code hero. A code hero faces life's inevitable defeats and suffering with discipline, stoicism, and grace under pressure. Grace under pressure. The value is not in the prize, the marlin, but in how you play the game, the struggle itself. Solitude and solidarity. The novella explores the isolation of the individual. Santiago's lone battle contrasted with the necessity of human connection, his unconditional bond with Manolin. Man in nature. The relationship between man and the natural world is complex. Santiago is both a hunter and a respectful brother to the marlin. The act of killing is necessary for survival, but it is carried out with profound love and respect for the adversary. Crucifixion imagery, religious symbolism. Many critics note the spiritual parallels. Santiago's suffering hands, his 3-day ordeal, the length of Christ's passion, and his eventual staggering return while carrying his mast up the hill evoke Christian imagery of perseverance and suffering. Part 2. The author, Ernest Hemingway, 1900 to 1961. Ernest Hemingway was one of the most celebrated and complex figures in 20th century literature. His adventurous and often tragic life deeply influenced his simple, impactful writing style. Early life and World War I. Birth and hometown. Born in 1899 in Oak Park, Illinois, Hemingway had a relatively conventional upbringing, but he yearned for adventure. Journalism. After high school, he worked as a reporter for the Kansas City Star, where he learned the journalistic style that would define his literature: short sentences, declarative statements, and emphasizing action over reflection. Wartime experience. In 1918, he volunteered as an ambulance driver for the Italian Red Cross during World War I. He was severely wounded by mortar fire, an experience that marked him physically and psychologically for life. This traumatic brush with death was the genesis of his fascination with courage, disillusionment, and violence. Based on his experiences during that time, he wrote the book A Farewell to Arms, an autobiographical novel that blends non-fiction with a touch of fiction. The Lost Generation and the Iceberg Theory. Paris in the 1920s. Following the war, Hemingway moved to Paris, becoming a central figure in the Lost Generation, a group of American expatriate writers, including F. Scott Fitzgerald and Gertrude Stein, grappling with the moral and social wreckage left by the war. The Iceberg Theory style. Hemingway is famous for his sparse, economical prose. He believed that the strength of a story should lie in what is omitted from the narrative. He famously said, "If a writer of prose knows enough about what he is writing about, he may omit things that he knows, and the reader, if the writer is writing truly enough, will have a feeling of those things as strongly as if the writer had stated them. Only the tip of the iceberg is showing. The massive, powerful bulk is hidden beneath the surface." Later adventures and The Old Man and the Sea. A life of action. Hemingway chased experience around the globe. He was an avid big game hunter in Africa, informing the snows of Kilimanjaro, a passionate fisherman in Key West and Cuba, and a war correspondent during the Spanish Civil War and World War II. For Whom the Bell Tolls was a novel Hemingway wrote based on his experiences during the Spanish Civil War. The Cuban Years. Hemingway lived in Cuba for over 20 years. He was an intimate observer of the local fishermen and their struggles. The character of Santiago is widely believed to be based on a real Cuban fisherman named Gregorio Fuentes, who captained Hemingway's boat, the Pilar. Writing The Old Man and the Sea. By the late 1940s, Hemingway's critical reputation was declining. Critics felt his work was repetitive. He wrote The Old Man and the Sea as a direct response to those critics, demonstrating his enduring skill and vitality. It was published in its entirety in Life magazine in 1952 and became an instant, immense success, marking his final major literary achievement. Final years. Despite his public image of machismo and strength, Hemingway suffered from severe depression, alcoholism, and various physical ailments in his final years. He tragically took his own life in 1961. Conclusion. Ernest Hemingway's life was defined by the relentless pursuit of authentic experience, a dedication that mirrored the unyielding struggle of his own characters. The Old Man and the Sea stands as his testament, a concise yet profound meditation on courage, defeat, and the unconquerable spirit of man in a chaotic world. It is the perfect encapsulation of the Hemingway Code: to suffer, to endure, and to maintain one's dignity until the very end. This perfectly embodies the Hemingway Code: enduring suffering while preserving dignity until death.
The end. Thank you for joining us.